By February 15th, 1959, the families of the Dyatlov group were starting to worry. The group of 9 experienced hikers should have been back by now, but nobody heard a word from them. On February 20th, 5 days later, a formal search for the hikers began. After 3 months of searching, all 9 of the Dyatlov group's bodies were found. But instead of providing answers, investigators were only left with more questions. What made the hikers flee the warmth of their tent? Why weren't they wearing shoes? Why were their clothes radioactive? I've touched on the Dyatlov Pass incident before, but never in its own video. But when something is so strange, so unsettling, and continues to remain unsolved almost 60 years later, it's worth giving it a harder look as today's morbid mystery. Sometimes this channel is about whether dead people poop, and sometimes it's about mysterious deaths of Soviet hikers. Keeps you on your toes. In late January 1959, a group of students and recent graduates of Ural Polytechnic Institute embarked on a hike to the northern Urals. Led by Igor Dyatlov, the group of friends were experienced in both ski tours and mountain expeditions, and approached their adventure with cheerful know-how and enthusiasm. By all accounts, the Dyatlov group were good folks with good heads on their shoulders. But on the night of February 1st, something went very wrong. Camped on the eastern slope of what the indigenous Mansi tribe came to call Dead Mountain, for the lack of vegetation, not the lack of living hikers. Something so terrified those friends that they tore out of their tent and scattered shoeless and underdressed into the frigid darkness. This is what we know. Some people think the Dyatlov group were compelled to exit their tent that night. It appears they were in such a panic that they cut the tent open from the inside out. They ran shoeless into the moonless 25 below zero night, and their bodies were found spread about a mile from their campsite. Yuri Dorochenko and Georgy Krivonichenko were found by what had been a campfire. Both men were bloodied, burned, and were not wearing jackets or pants. In fact, Dorochenko was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt and swim trunks under long underwear. Investigators deduced that their fire had only burned for a short while, with Dorochenko having fallen from a cedar tree while trying to get firewood. This explains the branches underneath Dorochenko's body, as well as his cuts and bruises. It's likely the pair were overcome by hypothermia before they could add more branches to their fire. Zenaida Kolmogorova, Rustik Slobodin, and Igor Dyatlov were discovered not far from the campfire. All died of hypothermia, all were shoeless, save for Slobodin, who wore one felt shoe, and all died while trying to climb back up to the tent. Kolmogorova and Slobodin both hit their heads when they fell, Slobodin fracturing his skull. Now, all 4 remaining hikers' corpses were found in a nearby ravine. All had suffered some sort of violent injury, like massive trauma to their chests. Alexander Kolevatov suffered a broken ankle. Nikolai Thibault-Brignon died of, quote, impressed fracture of skull dome and base with abundant hemorrhage. Ludmila Dubinina was also missing her tongue. It was probably eaten post-mortem by animals or microfauna, but people like to point this out as one of the extra creepy parts of the story. Scavenged tongues aside, there's a lot about the Dyatlov incident that is rather chilling. Chilling. Nailed it, 'cause it was cold. Broken bones might be explained by a fall into a ravine, and ripped and discarded clothing might be attributed to paradoxical undressing. This is when a person is in late-stage hypothermia, thinks they're burning up, so they strip. But the question remains, why did the Dyatlov group all leave their tent in the first place? I mean, it's gotta be something more substantial than an unknown compelling force, which was recorded as the official cause of the hikers' deaths. So, what are the theories? Well, there's the night pee theory. This theory suggests that one member of the group went outside to pee and got swept away by the strong winds. His cries for help made the other group members come running from the tent, and then they got swept up by the winds too. But you don't usually cut yourself out of a tent to help your peeing friend, though. Maybe you do. Maybe I'm a bad friend. Then there's the escaped prisoners theory. Some think that a gang of armed men escaped prisoners, or maybe even Soviet operatives, forced the hikers from their tent and made all the deaths look like an accident. Believers of this theory like to point to Dubinina's missing tongue as proof she was punished for being mouthy. It's more likely a bear or decomposition. Or that's what they want you to think. No, I don't know. Then there's the government conspiracy theory. Because of course there is. Many claim that on the night of the incident they saw bright orbs in the sky over the northern Urals, bright enough to wake people up from inside their home. Some say this was government weapons testing and that somehow the lights made the hikers go outside. If the testing was nuclear, that would account for the group's radioactive clothing. That's right, many articles of the clothing from the group were radioactive, and not just a little radioactive. One sweater was almost twice the normal level. We're talking levels that, quote, exceed standards for people working with radioactive substances. And while I'm not agreeing with the government conspiracy theory, you can't explain radioactive sweaters by falling into a ravine. But perhaps the most believable theory is the infrasound theory. Infrasound is sound that falls well below the human threshold of hearing. It can be both naturally occurring or man-made. Supposedly at the right wind speed with the right physical obstruction, infrasound is created, causing people to experience inexplicable fear, anxiety, and psychological disturbance. Theoretically, on the night of the hiker's death, the wind may have been blowing just right on Dead Mountain, causing an infrasound vortex that would have induced panic in the group, making them run from the tent. It's not the most airtight theory, but this one isn't so bad, except for the radioactive stuff. Whatever, it's probably aliens. So, deathlings, whether it was a government conspiracy or a dude who just needed to pee at the wrong time, the Dyatlov Pass incident might just forever remain a morbid mystery. Tell us in the comments what other morbid mysteries you'd like to hear about. This one was your suggestion, so we listen. This video was made with generous donations from death enthusiasts just like you.